Hey everyone, my name is Sean, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a deck profile and a breakdown of my ORCUST deck for the Link Evolution format. I think ORCUST is a very powerful strategy and one which really works well for the Link Evolution online ranked side of play, because it's a deck which can go first or second, has very powerful cards, and it's just very reliable in what it likes to do. I don't know necessarily if it is the best deck. It probably isn't. Probably something like Spiral might be the best deck at the moment, because it was competitively the best deck in real life with this kind of format back in March. However, ORCUST is still, I would say, a tier 2 style strategy, and it's my favorite strategy to play because it doesn't really have many bad matchups. It's a very versatile deck. It can kind of deal with any situation you can come up with. I will like to say as a preface, I am still experimenting with this deck, particularly when it comes to the removal cards in this deck. I'm still kind of working out what are the best cards to work with, and making sure that you are able to play every single game, because this is a format where you are not allowed to side. You have one game and that's it. You either win or you lose. So I'm still experimenting with this deck, but I think I've got a build which I'm very comfortable with sharing. So I'm going to do, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do the deck profile first, and then I'm going to break down the cards into groups of their roles. Normally with deck profiles, you see them do them in forms of monster spells and traps. Since playing competitively in real life, I found that it's actually a very poor way of looking at how to build a deck, and so I want to break them down into their roles and explain to you the purpose of these cards in their groups, as well as what their functions are, what they do. So let's break this down. We got started off with, let's see, can I do this by name, just so we get all the similar ones? Name, yes, but that really puts this into a weird format. Never mind, we'll do it by card frame. So we're going to start off with 1 Armageddon Knight, 1 Danger Nessie, 2 Danger Jackalope, and 2 Danger Tsuchinoko. Then we have 1 Dark Grepher, 1 Gizmo Orochi, the Serpent and Sky Slasher, 1 Jet Synchron, 1 Mecha Phantom Beast Olion, and 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being. We have 2 copies of ORCUST Symbol Skeleton, 3 copies of ORCUST Nightmare, 1 copy of Scrap Golem, 3 copies of Scrap Recycler, and 2 copies of World Legacy World 1. For the spells, we have 2 copies of Allure of Darkness, 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More, 1 copy of Foolish Burial, 1 copy of Monster Reborn, 1 copy of Orchestrated Babel, 2 copies of Orchestrated Return, 1 copy of Reinforcement of the Army, and 3 copies of Twin Twister. Finally, we have 1 copy of World Legacy Succession. The only trap which I'm running at the moment is 1 copy of ORCUST Crescendo, and that is because it is a searchable trap card, which means it's either good going first or second. And it's an Omni Negate, so it's really good. Dingersu, for the extra deck, we have 3 copies of Dingersu, 1 copy of Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess, 1 copy of Boral Sword Dragon, 2 copies of Galatea the ORCUST Automaton, 1 copy of IP Masquerena, 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix, 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn, 1 copy of Lib the World Key Playmaster, 1 copy of Link Karibo, 1 copy of Salamangreat Almirage, 1 copy of Scrap Riven, and 1 copy of Topologic Bomber Dragon. So now I'm going to break down these cards into their groups and explain more about what they do, so that you guys can understand why these cards are in this deck and what you might want to change. So first of all, we're going to start off with the starters of the deck. The starters are cards which really just get your deck going, and the whole point of this deck is you want to get cards to your graveyard in order to activate their effects and generate free resources. The main card you want to get to your graveyard is ORCUST Nightmare, and so our starters really focus on getting this card to the graveyard, but can also go into our extenders to add more monsters to the board in order to do better link climbs and create better boards for breaking our opponent's boards going second, or setting up a bunch of negates and interactions going first. We have 5 normal summons in this deck. The normal summons come in the form of Armageddon Knight, Dark Grepher, and 3 copies of Scrap Recycler. I guess you could also count Reinforcement of the Army, because that searches out your 2 warrior monsters. These are the cards which you want to start with, and you've got to really be careful with how you play with them. They are very vulnerable to cards like Ash Blossom, so you want to kind of hope that you have another starter to kind of work with it. But these are very necessary to play. These 2 boys can send dark monsters to the graveyard, while Scrap Recycler can send machine cards to the graveyard, so both really function very well. Dark Grepher also kind of functions as an extender, so it's kind of good. It's a little bit less bricky than the other monsters, but the benefit of the other monsters is that they work when they're summoned. So whether they come to the field by normal summon, or you find a way to summon them from the graveyard, they get to trigger and send more monsters to the graveyard. So do keep that in mind. ORCUST Nightmare is the heart and soul of the deck. This card wasn't the best card in the deck before. Previously, the best card in the deck was ORCUST Harp Horror. This card works as follows. All ORCUST cards banish themselves to the graveyard to do an effect. This card allowed you to special summon an ORCUST monster from your deck. But the downside of this is that you cannot summon any other monsters except dark monsters for the rest of the turn. ORCUST Harp Horror was such a good card, and because ORCUST was killing it at so many tournaments, and yeah, I won a few regionals because of this, Konami decided to ban this back in January. This has really hurt the deck a little bit, but now we focus on ORCUST Nightmare. Where a Harp Horror special summon monsters from your deck, Nightmare sends a monster to your graveyard, and it's basically an archetype version of Foolish Burial. So this is where you kind of want to start your players. Get your Nightmare to your graveyard, and then send other monsters to the graveyard to further extend and build a board. We have 2 copies of Allure of Darkness. It's a bit of draw power, it allows you to dig for your deck. I don't really care for Allure of Darkness. You don't really want to send your cards from your hand to your banish pile, but you need to just sometimes unbrick your hand and just draw and dig in deep into your deck. And the cards that you do banish from this aren't necessarily completely unrecoverable, so it's not the end of the world if you do so. We have 1 copy of Foolish Burial, does what it says, sends a card to run the deck to the graveyard. 2 copies of Orchestrate Return. This is a draw card for the archetype. You send a World Legacy card or an ORCUST card from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard and draw 2 cards. This card is also searchable, which is why we run 2 copies of it. It's kind of good to see in your open hand so you can draw more cards, but be careful, this card is a hard once per turn, so you don't want to see it too often. So those are the starters for the deck. 14 starters, pretty good. They could be better quality starters, but you have to work with what you can. Now, where ORCUST really shines is in the form of its extenders. There are so many extenders this deck can play, it's insane. There are extenders which I'm not even using in this deck that I could technically go and try, and have tried in the past, but this is what I'm going for at the moment. First of all, we have 5 monsters in the form of the Danger Package, Nessie, Jackalope, and Tsuchinoko. If you don't know what these do, they have 2 main effects. 1, when these cards are in your hand, you can choose to activate their effects. Your opponent chooses 1 card at random from your hand, and then you have to discard it. If they discard a danger card, these cards have effects that activate in the graveyard as well, so discarding them isn't a problem. But also, if they miss your card, you get to special summon these cards to the field and then draw 1 more card. They're kind of like 3 copies of Upstart Goblin, which helps you to dig for your deck, but also gives you a body on the field, which you can use to link climb into bigger monsters. Nessie is a searcher. When it is sent to the graveyard, you can add any danger card from your deck to your hand. Jackalope is special summons from the deck, so you can summon Nessie or you can summon Tsuchinoko from your deck. And Tsuchinoko summons itself from the graveyard. It's a self-revive, so these cards work really well together, and they just really good extenders for the deck. They're also dark monsters, which is very relevant for the ORCUST strategy. Then we have 2 cards in the form of Jet Synchron and Mecha Phantom Beast O'Lion. Ideally with these cards, you want to send these cards to the graveyard from your Scrap Recycle or normal summon, because they provide you an additional way to extend further into your deck. I'm going to explain a little bit more about what you kind of want to use these cards for, but ideally you go for Jet Synchron if you have a card in your hand you want to discard or send to the graveyard. Let's say you drew an ORCUST Nightmare, you send Jet Synchron and then send Nightmare to the graveyard and summon Jet Synchron. That gets Nightmare in the grave, and that's where you want it to be. If you don't have a card that you want to discard, and say you've got, say, just spells or something else you want to keep, you go for Mecha Phantom Beast O'Lion. Mecha Phantom Beast O'Lion, when it's sent to the graveyard, gives you a token. This then allows you to do a link summon with the token, so it gives you a free body when it's sent to the graveyard. For the archetype based extenders, we have ORCUST Symbol Skeleton and World Legacy World Wand. ORCUST Symbol Skeleton is a monster reborn for the archetype, summons a dark machine from the graveyard, and World Legacy World Wand is a DDR reincarnation, in that it summons a card from your banish pile, and that's how you recur your resources once they've been banished. They all kind of focus similar. You banish them from the graveyard and summon a monster out to the field. So ideally you want to go ORCUST Nightmare, send either Symbol Skeleton to the graveyard or World Wand, and then extend and get a monster to the field. Then we have Scrap Golem. Scrap Golem performs part of the Scrap Recycler package, or the Scrap Wyvern package, and this is a combo card which allows you to bring back Scrap Recycler and then reuse this effect over and over again. It is a bit of a brick because it is a level 5 monster, and sometimes if you draw it, that's just too bad. It is what it is. You don't have to play this card, but sometimes the benefit of playing this card really outweighs the chance of bricking, because if you get this card to the field through the methods that you want to, you can really extend your deck very, very further, and you can make a better and stronger board than you normally would without it. So it's kind of worth it, but you don't have to play this card. Then of course we have Monster Reborn and World Legacy Succession. If you haven't got it by now, summoning cards from the graveyard is very, very important, and World Legacy Succession is searchable. I'll tell you about that a little bit more later. Galatea is then, we also have extenders through our extra deck as well, which is very good. So we have 20 extenders for this deck. Galatea being the heart and soul of the deck, she is able to recur any card, any machine card that is banished, shuffle it into the deck, and then set a spell trap card on your field. You don't have to set a spell trap card on your field. If you just want to shuffle a card into your deck, that's also a-okay, because you want to loop your resources. But she's also able to search out one of your free cards in the form of Orchestrated Babble, which is your field spell. Talk more about that later. Orchestrate Return, which is one of your starters, or can be also an extender in that case. Or Orchestrate Crescendo, which I'll also talk about a little bit later. So she's a bit of a toolbox, as well as a stepping stone for your engine cards as well. Let's start off with these two. We have Link Karibo and Salomon Great Armorage. These two cards have very simple and similar purposes. They allow you to send one of your starters to the graveyard so that you can kind of extend your play. Let's say, for example, you draw a Jet Synchron and you want it not in your hand, you want it into the graveyard, and you have cards in your hand that you would rather have in your graveyard. Let's say you drew an ORCUST Nightmare. So you can normal summon Jet Synchron, link it away, make Link Karibo, then discard your ORCUST Nightmare, summon back Jet Synchron, and that gives you 2 cards on the field and the ORCUST Nightmare engraved. I used to use Link Karibo a lot more with Instant Fusion, because it was a good way of getting rid of cards like Thousand Eyes Restrict and Millennium Eyes Restrict off the field, and I might go back to that if I feel that it may be better to put those cards back into this deck. So Link Karibo has extra value and has potential to be really good for other cards as well that ORCUST can play. Armorage is very similar to Link Karibo. It works really best with cards like Olion, because if you normal summon Olion, it gives you a free body when it's sent to the graveyard. Or really, you want this to work with Scrap Recycler, where you can really extend if you have a card like Monster Reborn or World Legacy Succession in your hand, where you normal summon Scrap Recycler, send something to the graveyard, then send it to the graveyard for Armorage, and use one of these 2 cards, bring it back, repeat, send more cards to the graveyard. Then we have, let's start off with Scrap Wyvern. Scrap Wyvern is a insane engine for this deck. It's what allows this deck to really go into turbo mode. It also acts as a form of removal, but we'll get to that in a second. Scrap Wyvern is a little bit complicated, so bear with me as I explain this. How Scrap Wyvern works is you must use a scrap monster to summon it with any other monster. Ideally you use Scrap Recycler. When you have this on the field, you can choose to special summon any scrap monster from your graveyard, but then special summon, then you have to destroy a card which is on the field. This allows you to destroy one of your opponent's resources. There is a downside to this card though, and its first effect, or really there's a downside to Scrap Recycler. Because Scrap Recycler reads when this card as opposed to if this card, it means it is an optional effect and it can miss the timing. And if you special summon out Scrap Recycler using Scrap Wyvern's first effect, it will miss the timing and you will not get Scrap Recycler's effect. So ideally what you want to do with this card is use Scrap Wyvern to summon Scrap Recycler, then destroy it using Scrap Wyvern's own effect, and then Scrap Wyvern's second effect will be able to trigger. Scrap Wyvern's second effect says, if another face-up scrap monster is destroyed by a card effect, while you control this monster, you can special summon 1 scrap monster from your deck, then destroy 1 card on the field. So ideally with this combo, what you want to do is Scrap Recycler, get an extender to the graveyard, let's say Olion, link summon with the 2 cards, make Scrap Wyvern, special summon it back to the field, destroy it, and then use Scrap Wyvern's extra effect to bring out Scrap Golem. Scrap Golem, being the big fish that he is, can then use his own effect to summon a level 4 lower scrap monster in your graveyard to either player's field. You then summon out Scrap Recycler, and because it's the last thing to activate the chain, you will then get Scrap Recycle's effect and it won't miss the timing. So this is how you kind of extend your play. Through Scrap Wyvern you can get yourself extra bodies in the field in the form of Golem and Scrap Recycler, but then also get to pop a card on the field. If you're going second, you can actually destroy one of your opponent's cards using this card, and as well as extend your plays. It is a bit of a complicated combo, and it is a bit wordy, and it is very, very vulnerable to interruptions such as Ash or Nibiru, but the payoff again is really worth it because you get a really, really good board out of it. Another extender for the deck is Lib, the World Key Blademaster. Lib, the World Key Blademaster requires any 2 monsters to be link summoned, but you must have a World Legacy card in your graveyard. Ideally, before you summon her, you would have already put World Legacy World 1 in your graveyard. If you can summon out Lib, she can then use her effect to set any World Legacy spell or trap card directly from your deck, but it cannot be activated this turn while you have no World Legacy monster in your graveyard. Well, you will already. If you summoned her to the field, you've got a World Legacy card in your graveyard. So ideally, what you do is you use 2 monsters, let's say Scrap Wyvern, Scrap Recycler and Scrap Golem, summon out Lib, then you set World Legacy Succession from your graveyard, and then you can use that to summon something back, let's say Scrap Golem again, to perform more special summons and combo off even harder. Lib, like Scrap Wyvern, is also really good going second, in that she has a removal effect, and that is if this link summon card is sent to the graveyard as material, you can shuffle 1 card on the field into the deck. This is really, really great. It's a really versatile effect, and you get a lot of value out of this link 2 monster. Hopefully by now, through my long explanation, you can see the power of the extenders for the ORCUST cards, because they form as starters, extenders, and even removal cards. Moving on, we've got now the removal cards and defensive cards for this deck. The 5 main cards which we have are Gizmek Orochi, Twin Twister, and Crescendo. Gizmek Orochi is a very versatile card. You can special summon it during either player's turn, and it also has the effect where you can banish 3 cards face down from the top of your extra deck to destroy 1 card on the field and destroy it. It can be used as a removal effect, but realistically it's just very versatile. You can use it as a body to link summon with, you can use it to get rid of a threat on the field, you can even use it during your opponent's turn just to put a body on the field so they can't kill you for game. It's a very versatile card, it works very well. The only downside with Gizmek Orochi is that it does banish cards from your main deck to summon it face down, and if you banish too many of your engine requirement cards or your starters or extenders, sometimes that can really dampen your play. So be careful when you use this card, but it is very, very powerful and worthwhile having. 3 copies of Twin Twisters. I normally wouldn't play Twin Twister in the main deck. Normally I would play Twin Twister in the side deck. Normally I'll play a card like Cosmic Cyclone, but this is just me adapting for the Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution environment. I never want to play a game and end up playing something like very control heavy such as Autogeist or Subterra and have no way of dealing with these. So I've decided to give Twin Twisters a go in the main deck. Twin Twister also works nicely because they discard a card as opposed to send a card for the cost. So this works really well, not only with your, can we go back please? Not only with your other stars such as ORCUST Nightmare to get them to the graveyard, but works well with extenders such as Dangers because it will trigger their effect, and basically you get to destroy 2 cards on the field for free. Then we have ORCUST Crescendo. ORCUST Crescendo is an Omni Negate. It can negate a spell, trap, or monster effect while you control an ORCUST Link monster on the field. What's also great about this is that it banishes the card you negate, so it makes it harder for your opponent to get that resource back. Finally, when this card has been in the graveyard, except for the turn it was sent to the graveyard, oh well, you can only use 1 effect per turn, so you can use it the turn that it was sent to the graveyard. But while this card is in the graveyard, you can banish it and add any Dark Machine card from your deck to your hand, so it functions as a free searcher. The downside is, you can only summon special summon Dark Machine monsters for the rest of the turn. So you don't ideally want to use this on your first turn, you want to kind of use up your other monsters first, but then when you really need that key monster to kind of extend your plays, banish Crescendo, get something from your deck, and then just keep on going. Other removal cards are in the form of Dingersu, the ORCUST of the Evening Star. Dingersu is an insane card. Its removal effect is that when it is special summoned, you can send any card from your opponent controls to the graveyard. It also functions as an extender in that you can recur your banished machine monsters and attach it to them as material. But it also works as a defensive card because while this card is a material, if your opponent tries to destroy any of your cards, you can choose to detach a material from it instead. So it functions as removal, defense, and extender all in one, which is why this card is so good. Appaloosa is very good for this deck. She can negate monster effects. A very good thing to do if you're worried if your opponent has cards like the Nibiru and is about to wipe your board, so you can kind of prevent them from doing that. IP Masquerader is a quick play or a quick effect link summon, so you can do this during your opponent's main phase, and you can use it to summon out cards such as Appaloosa or Nightmare Phoenix or Nightmare Unicorn or even Topologic Bomber Dragon during your opponent's turn and set up some cool combos or cool plays through that. Nightmare Phoenix is a removal card. It destroys spells and trap cards in the field. Unicorn is a link 3 that can shuffle cards in the field. And Bomber Dragon can destroy all cards in the main monster zone by summoning a monster to an arrow that it points to, that a link monster points to. So it's kind of just nukes the board and wipes the board as well. What's nice about this card is, I forgot one card. Longesu should be here. What's nice about this card as well is it combos with the Ngesu in that if the Ngesu has materials attached to it, it won't destroy your field, but it will destroy your opponent's. And if you use Longesu as well, and you summon Longesu and link Longesu to it, Longesu will not be destroyed because it gets protection from that, as opposed to Bomber Dragon just nuking it as well. So nice little interaction there between these two cards. I didn't mention Longesu. Longesu is also removal in the form of that you can shuffle 2 cards from your banished pile to your deck and then send 1 link monster your opponent controls to the graveyard. This card cannot attack the turn that you activate this effect though, but it is a quick form of removal as well. Finally, we're going to go on to the bombs for the deck, and the bombs, again, this is where I'm really testing this for the Legacy of the Duelist environment. I don't want to lose to combo decks. I think they're the most powerful decks in the game at the moment, and I just want to have a chance to play against them. But this isn't what I would normally put into my deck. I would normally put these into my side deck, but you can't side, so it is what it is. I have 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being, which can tribute all monsters on the field if your opponent has summoned more than 5 monsters during this turn. Kind of just a big reset button, and you don't really care if your monsters have been tributed. This card also has a really cool interaction with ORCUST Nightmare, in that if you do Chain Link 1 Nibiru and then Chain Link 2 ORCUST Nightmare, ORCUST Nightmare will stop you, or any ORCUST card actually, ideally Nightmare actually. ORCUST Nightmare will lock you into only some of the dark monsters, but Nibiru will still try to resolve as much as possible. So it will tribute all cards in the field, but then you won't be able to summon Nibiru, and your opponent won't get a token for their efforts as well. So it just completely wipes the board, and it's just a really cool interaction and way of stopping combo decks. Similarly, we have Dark Ruler No More in freeze. Dark Ruler No More says negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of the turn. Your opponent cannot respond, or neither player can activate monster effects in response to this card's activation. So between the Nibiru and Dark Ruler No More, the idea with this is really just to either wipe their board or negate all their effects so that I can actually just play and try to break their board and have a chance. Still not 100% sold on these. These cards are very, very bad if you're forced to go first, so you kind of don't do anything if you're going first. But I'll test it out and see how much that really hurts my deck. Last 2 cards we have is Orchestrated Babble and Borrowsword Dragon. Orchestrated Babble is easily the best card in the ORCUST archetype. It's very simple, but it's also very powerful. Simply put, this takes all of your ORCUST cards and turns them from Link Speed 1 cards to Link Speed 2 cards, making them quick effects. Meaning you can use these cards during your opponent's turn, as well as your own. Also, Orchestrated Babble, if it is sent to the graveyard, you can recur it by sending 1 card from your hand to the graveyard to add it back to your hand, which is why we only play 1 of it. So it's a card which constantly can come back to your hand, and also just gives you extra resources during your opponent's turn by turning your effects into quick effects. The last card we have is Borrowsword Dragon. Borrowsword Dragon can OTK, it gives you double attack, increases on attack, and just wins games. So, give me a second. I know that was very long, but hopefully this breakdown has helped people to understand why ORCUST is such a powerful deck. Feel free to give it a try. If you have any comments or suggestions for me on how I can improve this build, do let me know. But ORCUST is by far my favourite deck, and hopefully you guys will enjoy playing it. Guys, if you enjoyed this breakdown and you've enjoyed the way I've described this video, please let me know. If you would rather that I just did deck profiles on the form of monster spells and traps and kept it short, that is absolutely fine. But if you do like this kind of explanation. I am very interested to see if we get good feedback on this, so do let me know. And yeah, feel free to add me, challenge me anytime, and I look forward to your challenge. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you soon. Take care.